For those who don't know me, I'm Richard Moir. I'm the Technical Director for Cisco here in Scotland. And I've got my colleague joining me today, James MacDonald. It will all become apparent as to why James is here. The main reason is because I'm a man, I can't actually multitask, so I need James actually to help me out with one of the kind of demonstrations that we're going to do as part of the presentation today. I'm also conscious that I'm probably between you and lunch, so I will try and keep this as relevant and as short as possible. So thank you also for the opportunity to speak today. It's great to obviously be able to come along and talk on something that's quite passionate, I'm certainly quite passionate about. As you may be aware, the web has probably advanced quite significantly. And in fact, maybe you're not aware, but the internet is actually 20 years old. Well, they're calling it 20 years old since the first web pages actually were first produced. And in those 20 years, I think we've seen a phenomenal change in both the internet and also the way that we actually do business, and also the way that we actually interact from a personal perspective. When the internet first came out, it was very much us kind of interacting with computers, taking information off those computers. So I say I'm not affiliated to LinkedIn, but I thought it was a good example, rather than me trying to explain what LinkedIn is. A very graphical example of trying to describe what a product is, using something that's also now starting to emerge considerably on the internet and in social media websites, which is video, which we then use for whatever purpose. But over recent years, it's very much now a two-way process in terms of we are very much information creators and contributing to a community out there. And in effect, we're actually connecting people and not computers in the most recent times. We're also seeing a huge amount of increase in terms of organisations now using social media in their business. There are still a large number of organisations out there fighting, and obviously companies who are not are starting to see things drift away. Some examples of this could also be related to if you're not tuned into this and you are selling some sort of product or solution and you start to see your market disappear because you're actually only using traditional media mechanisms to monitor how good your product is, how good your service is, and all of a sudden you start to see declines in revenues or decline in sales. It may well be that there's viral activity going on in this new internet world where somebody has actually mentioned something that your product isn't able to do, or the fact they've had a very bad experience, and suddenly this information is now proliferating, easy for me to say at this time of day, around the internet, which is actually causing your company damage. And if you're not actually aware of that going on, then effectively you're not able to do anything about it. So some examples of companies now using social media. I don't know how many people in the room are using contact centres. But contact centres was traditionally the place that you phoned up to pay a bill or to ask for information. Then contact centres started to provide web services, so you could interact with them through a chat box on your website. But now more and more contact centres are now being used as a means of actually tracking what's going on in the internet. So they can be tuned into, we've heard terminologies like RSS feeds, Twitter feeds, Facebook, etc. And if there is any kind of sort of viral activity, positively and negatively, about the services, the products, etc. that you offer, these contact centres can now be tuned into that, and they can identify early on when there's problems going to be arising, and then take corrective action. There is a whole host, as you can see, of different applications that have been developed over the last few years, and it's probably to say that these have only really come about in the last 4 to 5 years, bearing in mind we're only 20 years old. Some of these applications will come and go. Some of these applications, like Facebook, have become massive. And I think it was in July this year, there's now 500 million users on Facebook, and 50% actually access Facebook on a daily basis. That is a huge amount of people that are actually communicating and actually using online content. Twitter, again, I don't know how many people in the room are using Twitter. But again, you know, there's a number of instances where that's actually been used as a unique message way of actually communicating out with troubled areas within the world for us to be able to get access instantaneously to information. Again, if you actually start to troll the internet, you can start to track some trends that's going on related to social networking. I'm not sure if the gentleman from Google that I mentioned earlier on, but effectively they're actually able to identify where potentially they're seeing illness breakout throughout the world. How are they doing that? By people doing simple searches within the Google search engine. They can actually quickly identify that there's going to be an epidemic of the cold virus, for instance, in certain parts of the world. Similarly, for Twitter, I don't know if any of you have actually gone and looked at any of the Twitter stats, but again, you can see around the world what actual common things are being debated, being discussed through the Twitter channel, and similarly Facebook as well. If you are looking to tap into the social media world in terms of what should I actually participate in, what should I actually tune into, it will vary from industry to industry. So for instance, what the tourist industry in Scotland would need to tune into is completely different to what perhaps the manufacturing industry within Scotland would actually need to tune into. And it's a changing market in terms of tools and technologies that are actually relevant to those sectors today are continually changing. And if you look at, for example, Twitter, between 2009, so that's the fourth bar graph down, 2009, if you look at the percentage of people that thought that was critical to be tuned into as part of their social media strategy, again, a very small percentage. But look how much it's grown just in the space of 1 year. It's almost grown from about 5% up to almost 20%. And if you look at the same time, blogging has actually gone up as well. And there are some obviously other areas where you see a decline. And obviously there are some new emergents like LinkedIn, which again I'm pretty sure there'll be quite a few of you in the room either have a profile in there or starting to use it. So it is important if you are starting to use online content, and this is using again freely available statistics, a company called HubSpot, and again you can have access to this information. So again, be able to do desktop market research as to what you should be using if you want to tune into your customers. I mentioned LinkedIn a few minutes ago. I'm going to show a short video which is on YouTube. So rather than me trying to explain what LinkedIn is, I'm actually going to use social media to kind of give you a little bit of education. But I don't think that's a sustainable strategy going forward. It's not something that you're going to be able to stick your head in the sand and hope that in a few years' time, when you bring it back out again, that social media will have died away. I don't know if you saw the announcement last month where Amazon and the Facebook with one of the financial investors announced the S Fund, which was an organisation which there's actually going to try and invest in startups and organisations to try actually in creating more social networking applications out there. So this is something that's going to grow and grow, and it's something that your organisations probably need to be starting to wake up to if you're not already looking at this. And this is a statistic, okay, it's from July last year, but basically what it's saying here is that organisations who actually have participated in this new phenomenon called social or business social networking, as I call it, are starting to see business benefits.